So if we take a quick review of our diamond problems that we've been practicing for the last couple weeks now, just to make sure that we really know what we're doing on these before we start using them today. When it comes to these problems, we have 4 different cases in terms of positive and negative signs. Okay. Case 1, if I multiply to a positive number and add to a positive number. Well, the only way for that to happen is if both of these things are positive. Right? And a positive plus a positive is actually adding, it makes a bigger positive. Right? So I make a list of all of the things that multiply to 16. 1 times 16. If the answer just jumps out to you without the list, right? If you can do that, that's great. If you get stuck though, that's when you make the list. 2 times 8. 3 times, 16 divided by 3 is a decimal. 4 times 4, right? And then 5, 6, 7, 8 is the next one that works, but that's already on my list. So it has to be one of those 3 pairs of numbers. It has to be either 1 and 16, 2 and 8, or 4 and 4. Okay. Which of those 3 options could add to 10? The only option that could add to 10 was this middle one, 2 and 8. So 2 and 8 are my 2 numbers. When you enter that into formative, I would type in 2, 8, or 8, 2 would work also. Right. How about in case 2? Right. What happens if I have a positive and a negative? Right. So to multiply to a positive, right, it would have to be, well, a positive times a positive is a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. And a negative times a negative actually made a positive. So in order to multiply to a positive, it either has to be a positive and a positive or a negative and a negative. Since it has to add up to a negative, right, that must mean that both of the numbers are negative. Right? And then I can make a list of all of my things that multiply to 15. 1 times 15, 2, nope, I can't divide 15 by 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5, so 15 is 3 times 5. And then I can't divide it by 4, and 5 is already on my list, which means those are the only 2 possibilities. It has to either be 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. Okay. Which ones could make 8? Well, that would be 3 and 5. So negative 3 and negative 5 adds up to negative 8. When we're adding 2 negatives, just make that bigger negative, right? So negative 3 and negative 5 are the 2 numbers, and it wouldn't matter which order I put them in, but I want to enter them into formative with a comma in between. Now, case number 3 and case number 4 both have a negative number on the top. So to multiply to a negative number, right, we said it either has to be a positive times a negative or a negative times a positive. So for sure, I need 1 positive number and 1 negative number. It doesn't really matter which order they're in. I'm going to put the positive first and then the negative. Okay. My goal, since when I add a positive and a negative number together, like negative 3 plus 7, right, I really am asking, well, which is there more of? There's more of the positives, and then how much more? So it's really a subtraction problem. That's the same thing as 7 minus 3, which is 4. Okay. So if I know the answer is positive, the one there's more of has to be positive. And the other one there must be less of. So I need more positives and less negatives. And because even though we're adding, right, when I add a positive and a negative, I really subtract the 2 numbers. So when I make my list, I'm looking for 2 numbers that I have a difference or that are apart by 16. So if I make my list of things that multiply to 36, 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 5 doesn't work, 6 times 6, 7 would be somewhere in there. So that's my whole list, right? Which of those could subtract to 16? Right? So the only pair that subtracts to 16 or has a difference of 16, since there's one positive and one negative, is 2 and 18. I need there to be more positives to get it to add up to a positive number. So the 18 must be the positive one, and the 2 must be the negative. So my two numbers are 18 and negative 2. And our last one, case number 4. We want to multiply to a negative, so I still know I need a positive times a negative, which means really I'm finding things that subtract to negative 7 when I'm looking at my list. Okay, because it's a positive and a negative, they have to have a difference of 7. And I know that since it added up to a negative 7, there were more of the negatives. So the bigger number is the one that has to be negative. So when I make my list, 1 times 8, 2 times 4, 3 doesn't work, and 4 is already on my list. So those are the only two options. Which pair of numbers could make 7? Which ones have a difference of 7? And that would be 1 and 8. So I know I need there to be more negatives this time for the answer to end up being negative. So the 8 is the negative one, and the 1 is my positive number. So positive 1 times negative 8 is negative 8, and positive 1 minus 8 is negative 7, or positive 1 plus negative 8. So the two numbers are 1 and negative 8. Again, for all of these cases, it doesn't matter which number I write first and which one I write second, right? But when you type it into formative, type it in without any spaces and with a comma in between. So see if you could try some practice problems.